everyone. Welcome to ATalks. You are with Architect Avitesh. I started this for architecture students and young architects. For this wonderful journey, I would like to welcome all of you. Today, our guest is Dr. Benny Kuriakose. Benny started his career in 1984 under the guidance of Laurie Baker. He did his doctorate from IIT Madras. It's my pleasure to have him. Sir, most welcome. Students are really curious to know about what is good and what is bad architecture. Please put some light on this topic.
What is good design? That is why we see the kind of buildings which are designed by many architects doesn't have the huge quality, and the general public says that it is to a bad taste, concrete jungle, concrete disfigurement. So they use looks like matchbox like structures and all those things. And our public design is very bad. I mean, public spaces are very badly designed. Especially when you compare it with other countries where you go, the public spaces are much better compared with what is happening here. So if you look at many of these things, you find that the quality of the public spaces are bad. So I don't look at the architecture like modern architecture, postmodern architecture, traditional vernacular. I don't see it like that. Because the way you judge architecture or a building is using certain parameters, and in that I think there is only good architecture and bad architecture. We always had good and bad architecture. Even 1,000 years ago, there would have been good buildings as well as bad buildings. Mostly the buildings which have survived up to here are the good buildings. Whereas most of the bad buildings will not survive. And that is exactly what you see at the present day. Many of the buildings which are not that of good quality faces a real issue at the end of. So many of the buildings which have been built in 1780, 70s and 80s and 90s, even 2000 faces the threat of demolition now. Because I think it is mainly because of the bad quality of the architecture which is there.
Okay, it's really nice. One more question I just got from students that they just want to know why architects are not success as well as other fields or other people are very success in their fields. Why architects are lagging behind?
See, the fees, if you are looking at measuring success by the professional fees, one is earning this one. One earning, see, the advocates get paid, the top rated advocates get paid 25 lakhs, 50 lakhs, or even more per day. Architects are never near that rate. Even the topmost rated architects are never near when it comes to the professional fees. It depends on how you define success. Do you define success as one office having a lot of projects? A number of projects is the criteria. I think it's not the number of projects which is the criteria of judging what is good architecture, how one is successful. It is for example, what is that boy? I just forgot her first name. Who got the God of Small Things? She wrote the book. She got the Pulitzer Prize. She has written only one or two books, and she still got the Pulitzer Prize for her book. Arundhati Roy. Sorry, she's an architect, by the way. So, but whereas there are so many people who have written so many books, they are not anywhere in the picture. If you do good architecture and if you are successful, your buildings will be remembered forever, for a very long time. If you remember Corbusier, Frank Lloyd Wright, and many of those people, it is the kind of buildings which they have done. So many of the architects in India, there are some, so-called successful architects in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Nobody talks about their buildings. I know some of the architects in Chennai or other cities who have been considered to be very successful, I mean, they have stopped practicing, say, 10 years or 20 years. Nobody thinks about that. So you first is what is successful, and each one will see success in a completely different way. So I think the success of an architect is by his buildings are remembered forever, even if he doesn't do any buildings. He passes away, or any people still talk about his building, talk about his architecture. That should be the criteria of being considered as success in architectural practice.
Okay,
Okay.
sir, as I am teaching in an architecture college, I used to listen by every juror that they used to say, you should go with practical approach more than theoretical approach. So what you think about this? More practical approach or more theoretical approach?
See, architecture is a practical field. So, but then what is this practical approach is a question. You understand that? What each one sees as the practical approach might not be the correct one. For example, Laurie Baker constructed most of his buildings. He designed, he constructed, he supervised, which is that. Whereas most of the other architects are not doing it. So we can't say Laurie Baker's approach is very practical. Of course, he has been successful. This is one way of doing it. And there are architects who just do the drawings, doesn't bother about whether the buildings are being constructed or done, or whether the design. So you have the two extremes. So it is for each of the person they have to find a via media kind of thing. Which the important thing is that the idea of the architect or the idea of the design should get executed at the site. It should not get tampered at the site. And if you don't know the technical aspects of construction, you should know that is very important. I just meeting a person, I mean a famous actor, and he told me about his experience of constructing his house. I mean, he's a superstar in Tamil film industry, and he says he changed the architects 3 times or 4 times. He says that architect shows me certain things in a drawing, but finally when the design gets executed, you see a huge beam coming there, or he says it is. I mean, what they show me and what is getting executed, there is no. I mean, there is. So I just get. He said I just get very upset with these architects. So he was just trying to make his concern as a client, as a layman, that so this happens when the architecture doesn't have much of a practical knowledge. He should be able to visualize how his building will look like when it is actually constructed. He has to, and he doesn't need to know the structural calculations, which the structural engineers will do, but he should know that the beam has to come at that location, and the beam will be a deeper beam or a smaller beam, or how to conceal the beam. So he has to work out which way it has to be done. So it is very, very important to know the construction aspects and details. I mean, for example, I mean, as I said earlier, I mean, I'm trying to explain it more. He need not know how a beam is to be designed, but he should know that if we do like this, then beam will sag or beam will have a problem. So he should understand, he should have an intuition about the buildings, which is what our ancient craftsmen had quite a bit. That is what they had, and that is why they were able to create all these buildings. They did not know any structural calculation, but they did construct all these buildings. They were able to do. So you need a via media solution. That is what is required.
Yeah. And of course,
Yeah.
I also have a question. This is from a student. So he just want to know that before 20 years ago, people were working by hand, and now we have softwares. So what do you think, what is the effect of digital innovation on architects' life?
See, I think the creativity is something which cannot be replaced by machines. Although you have these artificial intelligence and all these things, they can replace the routine stuff. But the real creative stuff stuff I don't think the computers will be able to do. But most of the stuff that we see in the market or what you see, yes, I mean, if you ask what creativity is there in most of these projects, it is, we have to say that there is not much creativity. They just, it is a repetition of the design or repetition of an earlier design. There is not much of a you don't see that much in these buildings. That is what what I have to say on this topic. Of course, CAD has made it easier, very easy to make revisions in the drawings. Even 3D is not just to convince the client. We use it to discuss with the client at every stage. We use it also as a study model. In the olden days, we had to make a model and check. Now you just use the CAD model and or the 3D model and check. You know where the problems are going to come, where the proportions are going to be all right, and all those things. So I think the machines should be used as a convenient way of saving a lot of money in doing the drawings, and that is. But the creative part, I think it still cannot be. It cannot be replaced. Of course, artificial intelligence, the computers will come out with designs also, but you will not get outstanding designs, or somebody has to program it and give it. So the machine will do what is programmed. Machine cannot do. So it depends on the programmer. So I don't think the
Absolutely right.
creativity will be replaced. So if somebody is creative, there is always a scope for them to be very successful.
Sir, one more
Yeah.
question I got for you. So he's asking, in this lockdown or after it, what can be the challenges architect is going to face?
See, I think a lot of changes are going to come. One is that you see, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
I think two videos are there.
No, no. Now it's fine.
Okay. I can see two. Let me. So it is fine. There is no problem. Now it is
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, it's
Sorry.
fine. I think it's fine now.
See, there are a lot of changes which are going to happen. For example, TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, said that they will shrink the office space by 25% to 25%. They will leave many of the rental buildings, which means because they find that work from home is very convenient. You understand, work from home is very convenient. There is no issues with that. For example, my office started 2 weeks ago. I have attended the office only twice, personally, physically present in my office twice. I do the Zoom meeting. If I have anything, I just call for a Zoom meeting. I send an immediate, say, please come online immediately. Everybody is online and they just come online and you sort out the issue. You can share the screen. You can tell them what you wanted to do. So this will make sure that the efficiency of these things are much increased. So when TCS says that people will have to come to the office, work from home, come to the office only once in a week or anything, you see, people don't have to stay in the heart of the city or in cities anymore. They can stay. If somebody in Chennai is the office, if they stay in Coimbatore, they will take a morning flight, spend 3,000 rupees on the flight, both ways, 6,000 rupees. They will attend the office, go back in the evening. I mean, the company will not pay, but even if they pay, it will be much cheaper. 25,000 rupees they will save, and that is, it is much cheaper compared with what they are going to spend on the house rent. And if they stay in a place where they will be able to have because to buy a house in Bombay or in Delhi or Chennai, the real estate prices are very high. If they stay in 200 kilometers away or near some other locality or somewhere near a train, So 2 hours by train, our trains are going to get faster. I mean, they don't have to spend this amount of money. They don't have to spend money on this real estate, and where you don't have to get crammed into a 600 square feet or 1,000 square feet apartment. So this might be one of the changes. The other thing is that it's already happening in US. The retail business will get a big hit. For example, in US, there is a study done, more than 20% of the malls are closed. And you just Google depth of US malls, depth of malls, you will find so many malls closed. Some of the malls have been converted into apartments and offices. Online trading is happening now. What would have taken 5 years or 10 years has happened in these 2 months. Everybody wants to sell. So a company, automobile company, or a company which then sells two-wheelers, you never thought about online trading happening in that field. But now they know that it is very easy to do it on an online trading for them. People can just come and they just come to the showroom to take delivery. That is why in May month, most of the automobile companies did, not the premium segment, the cheaper segment, they were able to sell about 60-70% compared with last May. They did quite well. Automobile industry is the downward trend because online trading is happening. So all this will make sure that you don't need so much staff in the showrooms. You can cut down on regional offices. So all these things are going to make drastic changes in the post-COVID sector. Means lesser apartments. All these office complexes which are built will not have already so many vacant. In Chennai, I know so many spaces are vacant. There are no takers even before the COVID. So now with this thing, things are going, people will be very reluctant to invest in real estate. People will be very reluctant to buy real estate. So all these things are going to make drastic changes. It is just going to affect the real estate industry. It will be one of the industry which is going to get very affected. And that is the thing which is going to happen. So all these things, also people have realized that the air is pure when the traffic is less. See, Bangalore, a lot of people told me it is only 5 kilometers, but I spend 1 hour sitting in the car in the morning and more than 1 hour sometimes. And so that is a serious issue. Why do you want to spend 1.5 hours or 2 hours or 3 hours in a day sitting in the car? So people, the more softwares are going to come, which will control. So many video conferencing softwares are come up. So similarly, more softwares will come where you can monitor the work output of an employee who sits and works in his home. Problem is monitoring the output. But now softwares are going to come, which is not going to be costly, which will make a lot of changes to the system. So all these things are going to, so the real estate will get affected, less work. All these things are going to be happening.
Yes, one more student is asking that as she is in first year, so she just want to know that she should go with books knowledge or the current magazines, because she's just confused between the old one knowledge or that she should get the new knowledge with the magazines and the news channels or the current affairs. Current affairs in architecture.
Can you just repeat the question? Can you just repeat the question?
Question is, girl just want to know that what is your perspective about the history of architecture and the current knowledge of architecture. So she just want to know she should go with books or with the current knowledge.
The books can give a certain amount of knowledge, which anybody can get. So books has limitations. Everybody can read the books and gain that knowledge. Those people who are successful in career and life are the people who have read beyond the textbooks and increase their knowledge capacity, which means practical experience, working in the field, and their experience will be very, very different. The more knowledge you acquire, the more experience you have, the more chances of you being successful. And it doesn't happen once you pass out. It happens when you join the course itself. So, but then I'm not saying academic knowledge alone. What the marks of the universities measure is somebody's memory thing or I mean, it's very different. I don't want to go much into the details. But what is required in the field is very different. The first rank holder in an architecture college doesn't become the successful architect, both in terms of quality as well as making money or any of these things. You need much beyond that in the field. But in science, physics, chemistry, and they will go to IIT, they will become the scientists in the top institution, things will be slightly different. Architecture is a field where knowledge is very, very important. A wider knowledge is very important. And it's a field where you need to know a little bit of psychology, philosophy, public relations, communication, design. You need to know everything. It is not, if somebody is very good at designing buildings, I mean, if they start a practice, they will never be successful, because that is one of the skills which is required. You have to be good at so many other skills. So it is very important that you pick up on the knowledge, and knowledge from the books alone is not sufficient. The earlier you pick up this knowledge, the better it is.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was really amazing, and I'm just waiting for if anybody want to ask any question. Sir, I just got one more, and the question is, as early as we are working with architecture buildings, we were working with sustainability. So what is the reason that nowadays we are talking more and more about sustainability?
See, now there are 2-3 things which is very, very important. One is that what is generally believed as sustainability may not be sustainable. For example, the general belief among the public is that if you do a building with earth or mud, then it is a sustainable building. But that need not be the case always. So, for example, the superstructure or the walls of a building forms only 15% of the overall cost of the building. So even if you use earth for that, the rest of the parts are not sustainable. Okay, so you have to look at that. So just using earth buildings alone is not, especially if you add cement to it, then there is a cost involved in it. So you have to, all these things, sustainability, when you say this building is sustainable, compared with another building, this is sustainable. Now we have reached a stage we have to look at sustainability in a completely different way. Climate change is happening, global warming is happening. Now people are thinking about how to adapt our buildings to face these issues of climate change and sustainability. So we have to look at things in a completely different perspective. The maintenance cost of a building has to be less. The running cost of a building has to be less. So all these are all important aspects. So that sustainability itself has many dimensions to it. So if you do a building and demolish the building after 30 years or 50 years, it is not sustainable that way. The most sustainable thing is an existing building. If you repair an old building, then it is very sustainable, because already it has made its impact on the environment by when the building was built. So now to save that building for demolition, it is very sustainable. It is one of the sustainable things. You are saving on so much materials and so many resources. So all these things becomes very, 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 very important. So sustainability has to be seen in a completely different perspective. Now people talk about social sustainability, cultural sustainability, economic sustainability, etc. So all these things are very, very important. It's a bit difficult to answer it in a short time.
Thank you so much, sir, that in this short time you give me lots of answers, and students are really happy. Yeah. And I'm looking for the next session as well as possible for you. And for next time, I would like to request for a big session, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll meet soon. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Okay.